My name's Darren Cavanagh. I'm a film director, producer, and copywriter. Been working in the film industry in the UK for 21 years this summer, and graduated from film school in 1993. Seems a long time ago. And worked for MTV for a short period of time, working under the muse of Peter Doherty, who found the Beastie Boys, a bit of a tyrant in the industry, but learned a lot from him. And used to work on the production side of the MTV idents, the animation idents, which is probably one of the coolest things about MTV. But in those days, we had bands literally playing in the basement. It was in Camden Town in London. So you'd have Nirvana one night, Bjork another. It was quite an exciting time at MTV. But I was only there for about 6 months.
I've been to Camden, and that was a lot of fun. That city is great.
Yeah, it's pretty buzzing, Camden. I don't go there much these days, more for the youngsters. But it is still a pretty buzzy part of London, that's for sure.
So after you went to MTV, what kind of stuff did you do?
Yeah, I was associate producer on the animation idents for the channel, you know, the ones where the logo comes on screen. So I basically speak to producers and animators and talk to them about ideas about those and produce them and put them through the channel. So even at that early stage of my film career, I was already doing quite a bit in marketing. Before I went to film school, I'd always edit my own trailers. You know, I'd shoot my own footage, or I'd get footage from movies that I loved, and I'd cut them to film music. Because I've been into film music now for maybe 30 years of my life. I'm an avid collector. I've met and interviewed a lot of my idols like Hans Zimmer, Danny Elfman, Jerry Goldsmith, who's no longer with us, sadly. Yeah, I spent a short period of time during my film school career in LA, and was lucky enough to meet a lot of them at the sound recording sessions. Surprisingly, on a film production, the film composer is the person who the press are less interested in. So if you just turn up and say, you know, I know your work, I'd like to interview you for a film music magazine, you suddenly find yourself on the lot at Warner Brothers or Universal, sat watching Mark Isham score The Addams Family, or Danny Elfman doing someone else. So that was quite wonderful. I had about $2 in my back pocket when I went to meet Bill Conti, and he was sat there with his 2 Oscars on his piano, a blonde by the pool, talking to him about his Rocky scores and his music to Dallas and Dynasty. That was quite an amusing afternoon. Bless him. He doesn't do any music anymore, but he does conduct for the Oscars every year. And so fast forward to the end of my film days, my film graduation days, and then MTV. And then I was basically broke. I made a short film at college that was entered into the BAFTA Awards, didn't win anything, but it basically put me about $6,000 in the red. And in those days, that was a lot of money. And so I was effectively had a backpack on, and I was going to just head out to Florence and just have a bit of a break. But I'd already been to a job interview to a company called Momentum Productions, and they called me up literally as I was on the escalator to head to the airport and said I got the job. And that conversation turned into a 20-year career of me working in a company that I basically grew and built with a colleague of mine. And at the height of our production, we had 22 people working for us. We were turning over £2.5 million a year and working on pretty much all of Miramax and Disney's releases. That was pretty fun. For everything from Lion King to Pulp Fiction to English Patient to Armageddon. It was quite a buzzy time. But years ago, you were actually given quite a lot of freedom to create trailers and TV commercials for the UK and international. You know, John Lasseter literally gave me Toy Story 2 and said, there you go, make my TV commercials. Which nowadays, all of it's done in LA. All the creative is produced over there. And then it just gets shipped to the international territories, and they are instructed to use it, literally stick an end card on that says, in cinemas now. A lot of it's to cut costs, but also the cost of marketing films is so expensive that they like to retain control in LA. And so for me, that became less interesting, to be honest, creatively. And so I started to, not enjoy my job as much, started to think about directing my own films. That was the reason I left Liverpool in the first place. And then that led me on. The past 6 years, we basically merged our company with someone else, and I quit my job at the end of July last year to focus on my own filmmaking career. And to be honest, my aim to also just have a breather because I was exhausted. After 20 years of marketing, 2,500 films, you need a break.
So what brought you to Ira and to Ex-Dominatrix?
Yeah, her name's Ira. I mean, it is spelled Ira, and some people in Belgium call her that, but it's Ira because the film was originally called The End of an Era. We liked that title. It was cute and tied in, but it was a bit of a downer. You know, it was like the end of something. I think if you saw a poster called The End of an Era, feels like a bit like a war movie or a period drama. So, but to answer your question, when did I first meet her? It was basically 2008 in April, and I have quite a lot of colourful friends, to say the least, and we were at a very big fancy dress party, and Era turned up, and she was, you know, in a full latex catsuit, walking around the party, not hard to miss. And as well as a filmmaker, I'm a photographer, so we struck up a friendship, and it was literally, there was a foot of freezing snow outside. So to have a picture of her in this latex outfit in the snow in the middle of the countryside in the UK was quite something. So she liked the pictures, we had a laugh. I mean, she then basically, even though she lived in Antwerp, she visited the UK quite often, and we'd regularly meet up. I'd regularly take a lot of pictures of her for a website at the time or just for fun, and that's how I got to know her, really.
So how did that relationship turn into a movie?
Well, when I met her, she was such an entertaining personality. I mean, she would just tell an anecdote and you'd be gripped instantly. I mean, even with her broad Belgium accent, her English is very good. And so many a time at a party, she'd start telling some of her tall tales, and, you know, within 5 minutes, you know, the table would, you know, be gripped. You'd be laughed, you'd be inspired, you know, you'd be shocked by some of the tales. And partly, as a filmmaker, I just thought, this person's, you know, awesome. She needs to be in front of the camera, not just from a photography perspective. And so I started thinking of the idea of making a film about her life then. We talked about it on and off, and she was into the idea, but also, you know, she was clearly toing and froing from Antwerp and working quite a bit. And then when the incident happened in 2005, that basically really motivated me to make the film even more. At the time, I was flying to Texas to see a friend of mine called Michael Perry, who was about to be executed on death row. And basically, he'd been a friend of mine who I'd been writing to for a charity called Lifelines. And as I was on the bus transporting to the aeroplane, I looked at the London newspaper, and it had the headline of Dominatrix kills Englishman. And that was the story about Era. So that was quite a shock at the time. And also, almost, you know, at that point I realized, now I really have got to make the film, because I'm sure, you know, what happened wasn't what the papers were saying, and that's, you know, what turned out to be true.
Now, I know that the British papers, they're usually very staid, and they're not sensationalistic at all.
Really? Which ones do you read?
I'm completely joking with you. Yeah, they must have just fallen on that like meat to a pack of wolves.
You had me there for a minute. Well, I think, you know, the press in Antwerp were not very kind to her too. I mean, they don't look kindly on that kind of activity, and I think there had been another case involving a judge the previous year. So to them it was, you know, a perfect opportunity just to, you know, use a situation like this and just get the best publicity out of it that they could. The UK wasn't so bad. I mean, it was in a few key papers, but again, typical headlines, you know, most extreme dominatrix in the world, you know, kills British man, etc., etc. So they lasted for about a day, and then, you know, the news was gone. I mean, basically, that's what was reported. But clearly, the effect it was having on Era's life was a bit more serious at the time.
I still want to ask you so many questions about her and everything, but I know that's going to be taken care of in your documentary. But if you can, please tell me why they would call her the world's most extreme dominatrix.
I mean, that was her tagline. That's what she was known as. And so, you know, she did have a very active website. I mean, she had been active for maybe 10 years at that point. And so she had also invested a great deal of her own money and time and effort into building, you know, one of the most advanced BDSM studios in Europe. So if you were in the know and you had the money and you wanted to go to the person who was basically going to be, you know, the most creative with you, she was the person to go to. So effectively, she'd done her own marketing. That's where it came from. And in terms of the extreme, it really is down to the amount of services. A lot of dominatrixes will do the typical stuff, you know, the spanking, the caning, a bit of humiliation, treat you as an ashtray. I mean, you name it. I won't go into too much detail. I'm sure the listeners have got their own ideas on what dominatrixes do. But a lot of them, particularly play a role, and they personify a role that's based upon a cliche or what people would expect. Ira never was like that. She would basically be herself. You know, she's always been a very creative, very independent woman from a very early age. So she wouldn't adopt the attitude or the cliche persona of a dominatrix. She would apply herself, her own creativity, to activities that she felt, you know, the client wanted, and be as creative with them as possible. So that's, you know, she got a lot out of that. I think she made people feel that they were special, that they were experiencing something for the first time, and that it wasn't just about, you know, gratification or humiliation or the usual things that are associated with it. So there's more detail there than you necessarily need to know, but that's, you know, also what I found fascinating about her. She wasn't playing the role from a cliche perspective. And she had a lot of loyal clients because of it over the years, people that, you know, kept going back to her time and time again.
How was she when you said, we should make a movie, we should do a documentary on you?
From the initial inception, she was interested. I mean, clearly she'd had a lot of attention. She used to perform at a number of clubs throughout Europe. You know, her website was known. She'd done a number of photo shoots. So she's not shy, let's put it that way. But I think when she got to know me and knew my work, met my wife, you know, knew that I was a, you know, very creative filmmaker that wanted to, you know, do justice to her story and tell it creatively, not tell it from a scandalous position or to tell it to, you know, make, you know, money out of the situation, or basically to, you know, tell the story like a tabloid would. And really it was about her. I mean, the story came from our friendship, so that when that trust was built, I think she felt comfortable to discuss the prospect. And then it took a long time. You know, clearly the effect on Ira's life in 2010, you know, she was on a journey then. When she left Antwerp, she went to Mexico. I mean, she went to other parts of the world, and then she basically had to heal herself because her health wasn't great. She discovered yoga, and she was on, you know, a very different transformational path at that stage. So my communication with her was limited at times, but I always held the vision that we'd make the film one day properly. And in 2010, basically after the incident and before she was to lose her house and claim bankruptcy, I spent a week with her doing key interviews that basically I went there to see, look, is there a film here? You know, can we work this out? And in that week, you know, the footage that I did shoot will comprise of 2 or 3 of the major interviews in the film, and they're the ones that, you know, really reveal what happened. They're very gripping, they're very moving, and very cinematic. And from that point on, I realized there was a film, and it took me another 4 years really to quit my job and then visit Ira elsewhere in the world to continue the process.
Who are some of your influences when it comes to documentary work?
I think documentary films are really strong at the moment. I mean, they have, you know, we've had Searching for Sugar Man, Touching the Void, you know, Man on Wire. I mean, they've turned a corner in terms of, I think, dramatic creativity. You know, how they're cut together, the music, the editing, and the gripping. I mean, I love fictional film, don't get me wrong. I mean, I grew up on Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Martin Scorsese, Coppola, like the rest of us film fanatics. But for me, documentary it's still an art form that you don't know what you're going to capture on the day. There's still a huge amount of risk involved. There's a huge amount of trust. And then when it comes to the editing as well, it's, you know, it's always organic. It's always developing into something else that you didn't necessarily expect. You know, Werner Herzog's one of the best documentary filmmakers in the world, I think, and, you know, testament to his filmmaking skills that, you know, you see him do documentary after documentary, that each one is very different and has a different energy, a different vibe. I mean, it's great that he has his booming voice to narrate them all, and he's a bit of an egomaniac, but bless him, you know, his films are very unique and very gripping. And to be honest with you, I think there's more interesting stories in real life than in fiction. And to actually make fictional films, I've tried it on a lot of short movies, it's really bloody hard work. And unless you have an amazing crew, quite a chunk of money, and you're willing to work with actors time and time again to capture the magic, then it can be a real struggle. So I'm happy to let the Terrence Malicks of this world, he's my number one favourite director, create the films he does, and I'll be quite content to make hopefully inspiring documentaries for the next few years at least.
And tell me a little bit about your crew on this film.
Well, my wife is a professional makeup artist of 20 years, so she's been supporting me and doing Ira's makeup throughout the whole production, as well as other people that we've interviewed, and Ira's daughter, Charlotte. And currently I've got a great editor called Alec Limwell, who lives in the UK. He's not far from me, so he's done a number of documentaries on David Bowie, Muse, Sex Pistols, so he's busy at work at the moment. And camera-wise, I've actually shot probably half the film myself, particularly all the footage in Antwerp. But then when I went to Goa, I had the great camera work of a young cameraman called Nouvelle, and found him online through Vimeo, looked at his promo work. It was very striking, so he came on board. And then sound-wise, I have a great guy from India as well called Danush. He was recording the sound in India. But basically in Goa, I was directing, producing. I had one cameraman, one sound guy, one makeup artist, and the people who we were with chipping in. I mean, it was literally that smaller crew. But in Antwerp, when I've shot footage over there, it's been myself, another cameraman that I used, and one assistant. So it's been a very minimal crew, to be honest. And I've had to be very creative with how I've shot things in terms of spending as little as possible, because I haven't had a great deal, of money to spend on it. But that's, again, it's part of the creativity, and that's why documentaries, I think, you can get some amazing footage on a low budget.
Now, I know you're looking for finishing funds on Indiegogo. Where are you at with the actual production of the film?
Everything's shot, bought a few interviews, all the teaser trailers done, key art's done, the marketing's in place. So effectively, we need to start editing the main feature film come the end of the campaign in July. So that's actually going to be a reasonably fast process, because I've been very articulate with the scenes that I've shot in the film and the story. It's literally laid out. Not that I storyboarded the film, but certainly I've constructed the scenes and the sequences. So I haven't got 100 or 2 hours worth of footage to go through. We're going to be pretty quick, pretty lean, and get the thing edited pretty quickly. But the main production cost comes down to the editing costs. We want to do a really stunning grade on the film and a great mix. But also, Ira in the film tells 10 domination stories, ranging from the most expensive to the most extreme to the funniest. And when she tells those stories to camera, I'm not actually going to cut to footage of those scenes. We're going to cut to very high-end 2D animation, a bit like the manga sequence in Kill Bill, to really show the scene in a very cinematic way. But that's going to cost quite a bit to do that justice. So that's quite a chunk that needs to be handled. And it's probably going to be about maybe 10 to 8 minutes of bespoke animation in the whole film, so it's clearly going to take a bit of time to do that too. But we're very excited about that part of it. And so that's where the main money will go. And then also, to be honest, a lot of my co-producer has been working with me since last November. She's been, amazing collaborator, but she's been working on deferred payments. I literally haven't been able to pay her anything yet. And as well as a few other key people on the production that have been working on it as a labour of love, but also, I need to pay them something I will pay them something, absolutely, because of the great work that they put in. So the great thing about Indiegogo, years ago, I was reluctant to make a movie, because if you needed to raise money, you'd really have to know people in the money, raise it yourself independently, or just, kiss the bum of some serious producers who would basically want a lot of creative control or final cut. But thankfully, since Kickstarter and Indiegogo, it's basically the start of your marketing campaign. You're putting out your film and your brand to the world, you're engaging the public. If you do it well, hopefully we are making it interesting for people out there, then you get their backing, you get their interest early on, which I think when people actually contribute, it means a lot to us on a personal level, but it's also exciting to see that people are wanting to see the film and they're willing to pay now and wait later. But certainly, we're almost at 30% of our target. We've got over 30 days to go, so we're very confident that we're going to reach that. We're absolutely going to reward every perk that's claimed, and we've got lots of PR interest from a number of people, and we are talking to some serious film distributors about a distribution deal, and there may be some news about that in the coming weeks, so fingers crossed.
Yeah, this should be the best marketed documentary, I would imagine, with your 20-some years of experience.
Yeah, I've kind of, it's a lawyer's job at the moment. I've kind of maybe spent too much time on the marketing and need to get cracking on the editing of the film, but thanks for saying that. I mean, I enjoy it. I mean, it's absolutely awesome now to be working on a film of my own with the crew and marketing it that way rather than someone else's film. Absolutely no disrespect to all those great films I've worked on over the years, but there's a freedom to it. There's an excitement to it. There's a lot of hard work to it. And also, I mean, I've put in almost 4 to 5 years of work now and invested quite a bit of my own money. So at the end of the day, I mean, I really just want to make the best film possible. Pay people who are involved, and if on the back end of it, we get it seen, we get a limited cinema release, a great home end release and a download release, and we get a great response to the film and make some money out of it, then, happy days. That'd be icing on the cake.
Now, you talked about your passion for film music, for scores. Who's doing the score for the film?
Well, it's my good friend Nocco from Liverpool, who used to be a former member of Apollo 440 for many years. They produced several albums. But he's a great musician. I mean, he can play everything from guitar, bass, keyboard, you name it. And he's a great songwriter too. So he's already on a path of film composing. He scored 2 films, one called The Prey for French cinema. And he's done absolutely hundreds of remixes for the likes of U2, Bjork, Massive Attack. And he's done a lot of video games too. So thankfully, he agreed. I mean, he for years would just say, Darren, just get on with making your film, mate, and then come and speak to me about the music, will you? So he was actually thrilled when I'd made the decision to quit my job and focus on this movie. He's met Ira, too, on a number of occasions at her party, so, that really helped as well. When he saw the scope of the film and how I was telling the story, he was definitely on board from day one. And so far, he's been great. He's done a number of tracks that you can hear in the trailer, and a number of tracks that I'm using, cutting some clips together this very weekend. He literally today, I called him up and said, look, this scene is, really working. Can you adapt this track? And within hours, he sent me, about 5 or 6 versions. So thanks to him so far for all the hard work he's done and the music. I want the music to be a character in the film. I don't want it to be an incidental score. I want it to really propel the story at times and to be exciting for people to come out of the cinema and, be humming certain themes. He's written a great theme song for the film that he actually sings on too, so I'm hoping that you can play that out today so people can get a sense of that with the lyrics that tells the story of Ex-Dominatrix in a really dynamic way.
Now, it sounds like you really have your act together when it comes to making this film, but of course, nothing ever goes to plan. What were some of the biggest challenges that you had making the movie? Yeah,
I love the nothing goes to plan ethos. I mean, I'm quite a creative but spiritual person, and you make your plan for the day, and then the day makes its plan for you. So I always actually enjoy the happy accidents. And to be honest, the first day of filming in Goa, I took some malaria tablets to stop me getting malaria from mosquitoes. Seemed that it was a bad move at the time. There aren't that many mosquitoes in India, but literally I got an allergic reaction to them. So we were in a animal sanctuary of a friend of Ira's, filming her from a rooftop. We were on the rooftop. We were filming her walking out of a swimming pool, like Bond style, in a bathing outfit. But literally, I came out in a rash on my chest. My eyes went blood red, like Christopher Lee out of Dracula, and my glands, literally filled up. So I turned towards the crew to say action on the first shot, and they literally went, "Oh, what the hell is going on with you?" I was like, "What's the matter?" They said, "Are you stressed or something?" And I looked in the mirror, and I tell you, it was not a happy sight. So thankfully, I was in an animal sanctuary, and they had some antihistamine tablets. I took some of those, and a couple of hours later, I started looking less like the Elephant Man and more like myself. But no, there was another day we had Ira basically in high heels and a tight skirt walking. She said, "I want to do an interview outside there's an old ruin of a prison." When she talks about her prison, she spent some prison time after the incident in the film, and she wanted to do that interview outside a prison. So we said, sounds great, perfect location. We drive there, and the prison is literally on top of this hill about a mile away across this sharp gravel. So, you know, to see Era going, literally stomping up this hill in these, you know, leather high heel boots, tights and a tight dress, getting to the top. And then that was one thing, but actually going down was, oh, Christ, you can imagine. We got to the bottom. We were happy that we'd shot the interview, but she turned to me, she said, never make me do that again. I said, it was your suggestion.
What's your target date for release on this?
Well, we are hoping to release end of the year, early next, you know, all going well. So it really depends on how fast we can edit the film, what the distribution deal will be in place. I mean, look, we're going to honour every person that contributes and gets a perk. So if you've ordered a download or a DVD or you've got tickets to the premiere, you know, that's definitely going to happen, and you're top of the list for the first people to receive the film when it's finished.
And where can folks go to fund the film and find out more about it?
Our crowdfunding campaign is live on Indiegogo at the moment, so I'd love anyone to check that out. We've been the top trending film for the past 7 days on the film site, which is, you know, really exciting. And our website is x-movie.com. So on there you can see the teaser trailer. There's a page called Indiegogo. If you click on that, it takes you through to the campaign page. And then we were doing daily updates on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, you name it. So please check it out. I mean, over the next coming weeks, we've got a number of exciting perks available, including segments from Nocco's score, a calendar of exclusive photography that no one's ever seen of Era 2016 calendar, and a number of exclusive clips from the film that we're going to be uploading. Also, it's a national holiday on June the 21st, Father's Day. I'm going to return home to Liverpool to see my folks. My father, he's not very well at the moment, bless him. He's hanging in there just about, so I'm going to go up to see him. But then after that, I will be in the centre of Liverpool in Bowl Street with a dominatrix sat on a throne, giving dads a spank you for being a super dad. So I'll be doing fun pictures of Liverpudlian dads getting their bottom spanked, which I'm sure is going to cause a bit of a riot. But hey, there is no stunt we will not do to hit our target on this movie, so there you are. Be warned.
Hey, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun talking to you today.
Michael, I appreciate the time, and anyone who's listening, you know, thanks for listening in. I hope you enjoy some of the music from the soundtrack Mike's going to play, and from everyone, myself here and the crew, lots of love, and namaste to you all.
Someone else will, not mere color. I'm gone. stolen treasure, it's all the same to me. Just call me X. It's all life for the taking. I don't wanna know if your heart ain't breaking. Don't mind if I do. Just call me X. Hey, oh goddess, here comes the Black Queen. None knows the troubles I've seen. I'll burn for all your sins. Now call me X. Your pain, my pleasure. Your glimpse of stolen treasure, it's all the same to me. Just call me X. Reach for the kingdom, reach for the sky. Don't mind if I live or you die, it's all